So when I first heard about the Seattle School, I was really intrigued by the emphasis on story and the way that it sounded like the curriculum and kind of the ethos of the community was really emphasizing personal narrative and valuing personal story. And that wasn't the case in the community that I was coming from. And I had been working for my childhood church, and separate from my professional role there, I had gotten involved in advocating for the full inclusion of LGBTQ people in the congregation. And in that community, there was just a lot of room for like theological debate about personhood and the value of individuals and the value of like whole groups of people. And so I was really growing as an advocate for my queer family members and friends. And so I was really drawn to the Seattle School and thinking about like how could I grow in both my therapeutic skills, but also as a theologian who can develop a really robust theology of inclusion and care for other people and that value for story. And so it seemed like a really good place to be able to do that. But what I've noticed in the last year or so, after being here several years and doing all of this work, was that I really came in as an advocate for others, and I think that I'm leaving as an advocate for myself. And in a lot of ways, I think I was really over-identifying with my queer family members and friends because I hadn't been given permission before to advocate for myself. And so if I wanted to exercise my voice and I wanted to practice theology, then it had to be about someone other than myself. But I think that by learning to advocate for myself, for settling deeper into my own story and really feeling more comfortable with my own self and my own personhood, I think I've actually become a better advocate for others. I've been writing about how our seasons of spiritual darkness, it could be considered like a dark night of the soul or some other variation of that, is when we really connect most deeply with our desire, when other things have kind of been stripped away and the resources that we've relied on, even our faith, God, scripture, or our social connections have been stripped away. And in that lack of personal resources to kind of fix our situation or to feel better, it's when we realize what's most important to us, and kind of the stickiest truths are left over and everything else kind of falls away. The Me Too movement has been a really important example of that to me, where women have stayed silent for a long time, and women and some men have stayed silent for a long time, and now have gotten to a point where it's not worth it to stay silent. It's costlier to be silent than to start to speak up for themselves. And so that's the kind of intersection of gender and darkness and politics that I'm really interested in, and how we move into redemptive action in the world, rather than just kind of hoping that things will get better on their own. And I think as a person of privilege, as a white person and a straight person, I think that we can often fall for this lie that things tend to get better on their own, or that history is kind of on this upward linear trajectory that I don't think is true for everyone. And certainly I experience that as a woman under patriarchy. But I think that what I'm getting to is that we find that the light is inside of us, but we have to somehow be able to break through the layers of shame and fear that have been put on us, or that we put on ourselves to protect us from the systems that we live in and people that aren't safe. And sometimes that just takes time, and we need to have good resources and good therapists and good friends and family members who will come alongside us and help us do that, I think. What I plan to do by the end of the summer leading up to the midterm election is to start a podcast looking at how candidates use scripture in their campaign materials or in their campaign speeches, and to kind of unpack I think having Dr. Parker as my New Testament professor, and for many other New Testament classes, has been really helpful to see the ways that scripture has been subverted in order to support empire, instead of supporting the revolution that I think was going on at the time that it was written, or the subversive messages that are really in the text. And the value, I think, in all of my biblical studies classes here has been to really understand that you can use the Bible for anything, and so we just have to choose for ourselves to use it ethically, and decide what that ethic is. I'm Annie Mesaros, and I graduated with my Master of Divinity.